Duh. Subscribe to the channel. Year-old Yulia returned home in a bad mood. For several months, she worked as a nurse in the clinic and could not get used to the situation in the hospital. Work itself is routine, daily the same. Human troubles and suffering did not add joy. And colleagues, not very pleasant personalities with eternal talks about money, gifts, expensive things. And about the human soul, morality, compassion, and understanding never came to mind. Julia hurried home because it was already late. She stayed at work longer than usual, dreaming that very soon she would be able to find a job for the soul and she would fall into a good team. It was late autumn outside the window, a gloomy, dull time of the year. She also had the same boredom in her soul. Yulia was forced to get home by subway. Going down the stairs of the underground passage, she saw a skinny guy in dirty clothes. He was standing at the wall with a stretched, trembling hand and asked the passers-by to give him at least a little money. A bum, probably, the girl thought. She herself grew up in a poor family, without a father. Mother worked at 3 jobs so that they lived no worse than others. Therefore, the guy caused her sincere sympathy, especially since his face was pleasant with the right features. Julia took a few steps in the direction of the man, and when she came closer, she was able to better see his face. For a second, she thought she had met her ex-boyfriend, Anton, whom she liked very much. They met for a long time, but broke up very painfully. He seemed to raise his head, but immediately lowered his eyes. He is shy that he was here and in this form. The girl thought. She, by the way, all the time until they saw each other, secretly hoped to meet. And so it happened. Julia loved Anton, but her mother decided differently. Eternal insults that he was not her couple. Endless curses that the guy was allegedly not rich. She was so mad at everyone. That's how it was. Anton, I recognized you, and I'm very glad to see you. Julia was stunned. Girl, you recognized me. Unfortunately, I'm Dmitri. My name is Dima. Yulia squeezed the guy out of himself and turned away. Julia looked at him and thought, what if we bring him home to the evil mother and say that this is her fiancé and now he will live with them? Her mother will stop disturbing her, making her personal life better and supporting the right candidates, in her opinion. The idea was wild, of course, and Julia already imagined what a terrible scandal would be at home. But for some reason, today, she was in such a lousy mood that she really wanted to do whatever she could. She bought coffee and a bun. The man was embarrassed, thanked, and eagerly accepted to eat. Julia, meanwhile, started asking him, Dima, how did you get here? Why don't you work? Where is your home? The guy, scared and embarrassed, answered, Yes, it happened. I don't want to tell. Mother drinks, brought her father. I was in a hurry, not home, but ruins. And then they kicked me out, so I'm leaving. There are no documents, and without them I can't find a job. I'll find where I have to. Then at the station, on the highway like everyone else. Julia suddenly became unbearably sorry for this poor thing, whose fate was left without anything. She left on the go. Come with me. I'll feed you dinner. You'll wash up. You'll sleep. Just one condition. I'll tell my mother that you're my fiancé. Otherwise, she won't let you. And you play me. Well, do you agree? And if you don't like it or get bored, you'll leave at any moment. Nobody is holding you. Help me. I really need it. My mother is so mad. She doesn't have a life. She doesn't let anyone to meet her. She's not like that. She dreams that I'll bring a millionaire home on a white horse. The stranger was a little upset, and then he said, So you decided to bring a homeless woman to her anger? Well, that's a good idea, to be honest. Thank you for the offer. Your heart is kind. And you know, I'll probably agree. In the transition, I was already very upset, to be honest. At least I'll warm up a little. The girl's soul was enlightened, and everything around her, as if flashed bright colors. She was an emotional nature, lived by feelings. She never dreamed of a profitable marriage, a rich groom, and believed that this was not the main thing between young people. In the first place, there should be love and mutual understanding. What if this is my destiny? I'll tell my mother straight away that this is my fiancé, and whatever happens there. The girl decidedly took the wandering man by the hand and confidently stepped over to meet the future happiness in the eyes of the amazed public. It must be said that Julia's mother met her daughter and met with a stranger not very politely, as expected. Doctors said that we should do a heart operation, change some valve. But where to find the money? Life was not a joy anyway. But the main thing she dreamed of was to see her daughter rich and happy. All her life, Valentina Pavlovna barely got through the end to end. She was enough for any part-time job, only enough for food and a communal apartment. By the end of her life, she had completely destroyed her health. From here, all the patients would have gotten out. Of course, she didn't want Julia to repeat her grotesque fate, because once in her youth, Valentina Pavlovna was very much hurt by great and pure love, being left without a winded groom and with a huge belly, completely alone. Her perfect picture of happiness is that her daughter bathes in luxury and her husband is a cool businessman. Then you can die peacefully. Some kind of a. When she turned to the boy, the girl said, "Why are you so upset? Come in, don't be a slave, be like at home." Mother grumbled, "But don't forget that you are visiting." "Oh my God, daughter, when will you stop picking up the whole mess? We have a decent apartment, not a shelter for homeless people." The woman sighed bitterly and, with a little bit of grief, went to her room. Yulia fried potatoes with mushrooms. The young people had a hearty dinner. Then she took Dima to the bathroom, threw his dirty things into the car, and showed him his room. "Here you will sleep, next to the bed. I'll put you to bed now." Dima enjoyed himself with a hot shower, a clean bed, and thought about himself. What a beauty! That's when you start to appreciate simple human joys. Who could have thought that I would have to experience all this on myself? He looked at Yulia before going to bed and said sincerely, "Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Good night, my fairy." Dima got used to the guests pretty quickly, and the kindness of the girl played a positive role. Besides, Yulia was nice to herself, smiling, and was comfortable with herself. Young people got along well, talked for a long time. Dima tried to help with something at home. He fixed the long frozen fastening of the white ropes on the balcony, screwed the wrinkled cabinets in the kitchen, and knocked over the rusted chairs. Julia now ran home with all her legs. She knew that Dima was waiting for her there. The feelings between them suddenly burst out. That evening, they, as usual, watched some TV series and talked about everything. Suddenly, Julia shrunk from severe pain and screamed. "Julia, what's wrong with you? Are you in pain? What happened?" The girl grabbed her leg. Oh. She grabbed the shank. Apparently, she ran on the shift. "Oh, how painful." Dima took off his slippers and began to gently and softly knead her foot. Then another, then the shin. It was so nice. The pain immediately disappeared, and the shank let her go. The guy was reluctant to move higher and higher. He moved to Julia and became her passionately and skillfully kiss. The girl was trying to overpower herself and whispered, "Dima, what are you doing? We are like a couple, a groom and a bride. Stop it." The guy quietly answered, continuing to gently stroke her. "I also thought that a couple and fell in love seriously. Julia, I want you so much. You are the best. I have never met such people. If you don't like it, just say it. I'll go right away." But it was too late. Julia had already completely lost her head, and both of them plunged into a pang of passion, not noticing anything around. Young people were absolutely happy, and even the eternal dissatisfaction of the mother did not irritate them at all. Dima fell in love with Julia so much that he could not imagine life without her. And Julia had nothing to say. She realized that she had found her happiness. Here it is, real love. How can I get along with him? I'm going crazy. She tried to convince her mother, but she was inescapable. "Daughter, what are you doing? What future do you have with him? He's a wanderer. No documents, no house, no yard. What do you think? What if he's not here in a week?" Although Dima helped his mother in every way, took care of her, did everything by the house, and the men's hands were, oh, how necessary. She tried to hook up every time and fall more often. When Dima didn't leave in a week, the pensioner decided to go to the bank. While Yulia was at work, she immediately told Dima, "Angry, my fiancée, Yulia is a crazy girl. She just decided to have some courage with you." In fact, she has a fiancé. He's just on a foreign trip now. Get out of here immediately if you want to live. Otherwise, I will send a telegram to Yulka's fiancé right today. The mother realized that she was taking a sin to heart, as she had lied to her daughter in black, but the desire to see her daughter next to the rich man took her up. The guy took the words seriously. He looked at the woman with eyes full of pain and suffering, then closed his face with his hands and quietly cried. He didn't want to believe what his mother told him. Could it be that Yulia could have been so cruel to him? After all, she assured him that she loved him. Could it be that she betrayed him? It can't be. His whole body seemed to have become stoned. His legs didn't want to move. He barely moved away from the place and walked where his eyes were looking, even without looking back. On that day, Yulia, like a bad omen, had to stay at work for a day in the hospital because her shift was in the afternoon. But in the evening, they brought a 5-year-old boy with severe burns and asked him to stay until morning. Julia called home and warned that she was staying for a day. Her mother didn't tell her anything about the fact that she had kicked the boy out. On the contrary, she happily wiped her hands, realizing that after a day, he would already be somewhere far away. Dima wanted not to leave and wait for Julia to talk to her personally. He was deeply worried, and he was literally being spooked by the thought of why and how it could have happened to him. But then the feeling of his own dignity played a role in him, and he decided to leave. He decided not to take care of himself or her. Let them live as they want. Who am I to them? An ordinary god. When Yulia finally got home and didn't find Dima there, she immediately understood everything. She began to shout at her mother. I know that you kicked him out. Why are you doing this on purpose? I love Dima, you know. Where can I find him now? Mother went into a deaf defense. It's always my fault. Your wanderer left on his own. I didn't touch him. I won't cry over him. You'll fall in love with him as much as you love him. Maybe you'll find a good husband for yourself, at least for the 3rd time. How many times can you drive a car? And who are you going to? Julia was shocked. She understood that Dima could not just go away like that because everything was going well. She was crying. I can imagine what my mother said about me. Where can I find Dima now? I cannot live without him. In the hope of finding Dima again and explaining everything to him, Julia turned around right from the door and ran to the passage where they first met. She turned her head, asked other wanderers and merchants, but they were just holding each other's shoulders. They hadn't seen the guy here for a long time. The girl ran around the outskirts of the beaten hour. She thought that Dinka had not yet gone far away and was waiting for her somewhere nearby. But everything was fine. The guy fell through the ground. She suddenly felt so offended. Why did he do that? Why didn't he wait for her and talk normally? He said he loved her, and he took her and left. It was pouring rain outside. The last leaves of the leaves were torn off the tree by a sharp gust of wind. But Yulia didn't notice it at all. She was looking at the road, drenched in tears, and sobbed. Maybe my mother is right, and I am really some kind of harmful, impudent. Maybe, well, to hell with this love. Who needs her if she has only tears? No one can believe it. Our heroine finally froze, got wet, and got very sick. For 3 weeks, she was lying in high temperature, in a heat, barely leaving. In a mess, she was screaming out the name of Dima all the time, calling him, looking for him. Julia fell into deep depression. She went to work like a robot. Upon arrival home, she immediately closed herself in her room and cried until morning. She lost weight and ate poorly. Literally turned out the wrong way. Yulia was a doctor and understood everything at once. She was pregnant. The situation was terrible. The father of the child was a homeless man who ran away from her in an unknown direction. The mother is so patient with her, and if she finds out about her pregnancy, she will live with Svitas in general. What to do? How to live on? And most importantly, why? Yulia did not know. She now went to the same transition every morning and evening, and looked at her. Once she even thought that she recognized him from behind, and she happily yelled, Dima, Dima, I finally found you. But a completely unfamiliar man turned to her and surprisingly replied, I'm not Dima. You've recognized me. In despair, Julia decided to do something irreparable, but she did not see another way out with a child under her heart. And so all problems are solved in one go, with the eye down and the heart out. She went to the gynecologist, gave the necessary tests. She was missed out as a medical worker, when she was already lying in her chair and a strict doctor, clearly looking at her with condemnation, got all the necessary tools. Suddenly a terrible thought came to her. What am I doing? I'm going to kill Dima's child now. This is his little piece. His blood and flesh. This baby will remind me all my life about the most dear to me. How will I live after that? Here he is, the meaning of life. They are all crazy. And mother, and Dima himself, and the evil colleagues who openly laughed at her. I don't care. I give birth, and I raise him myself. On top of everything, Julia abruptly pushed the crazy doctor, got up from the chair, and grumbled. The gynecologist sighed in relief. Well, thank God. Come to my office in a week. Just don't delay it. Julia came home after the shift and immediately hit the nose with the smell of fried fish. She barely managed to hold her mouth with her hand and run to the toilet. She was stroking for half an hour. The anxious mother listened to the door, suspecting the worst. She screamed, "Daughter, you feel sick? Maybe you're poisoned? Open the door. It's not what I think." Finally, Yulia let go, and she, exhausted, finally went out into the corridor. The mother stood and silently looked at her with concern, waiting for explanations. The tired woman, angry, screamed right in the face of her mother. "Yes, Mom, I'm pregnant. Imagine, what a fool. Yes, I'm Dima. And you kicked him out. Now your grandson will never know who his father is. I hope you're happy. You've achieved this. I'm not going to do an abortion. You can even not start this song. And now I'll be left alone. I need to lie down." And she cried and ran to her room. Valentina grabbed her heart and went to the kitchen to drink sedative. She thoughtfully scolded the daughter. "What, the light is on? What a fool." She repeated, "My stupid fate. Even if I kill her, I can't bear to bear it again. I barely raised her. I thought I'd at least wait for my old age to rest. And now we will also grow up without a father." Since that day, Julia almost stopped talking to her mother, locked herself in, and did not leave her room. She tried not to cry. When she was completely out of her mind, she started to smooth her stomach and quietly sing lullaby or talk to the baby. Oddly enough, it helped, and she began to calm down and fall asleep. Valentina already regretted 1,000 times that she had cheated on her daughter and kicked out at him. The guy was really not bad. Not drinking, economic, and Yulia loved him very much. It was seen by the unarmed eye. And I would have a daughter, a husband, a father, and a child. And so what? Who is ashamed to say now? The daughter is pregnant with a homeless man who, in addition, ran away somewhere. Oh, grief. The neighbors will laugh at the chicken. It was scary to look at Yulia. She was constantly torn. She could hardly eat anything. At work, she had only. Especially the old nurses were excited. They were cheering and enjoying all the details, and they just gave an excuse. They heard the whole thing behind their backs. Here the young people went. They didn't have time to get acquainted, and already jump into the bed. Well, that's right. Bad things are not tricky. It's not working. You don't need a lot of mind. Here in our time, before the wedding, not. Julia was angry and thought about herself. Well, of course. Your time was probably not intimate. People appeared out of thin air, and no one was burned, and no one was thrown away. I also found moralists. The only person who treated her well was that very gynecologist, Efim Petrovich. He always encouraged her and calmed her down. Yulia could, without holding back her human speech, sometimes burst right into the office. He did not chase her, did not scold her, did not read her morals. I locked the door and calmly said, "Give me a cup of tea with chocolate or a salty cucumber. I always have one for my family. You, Jelenka, are in such a state now that you react very sharply to everything. And this is normal. Hormones are going crazy. Try to abstract from everything. Walk more. Talk to your son. I assure you, he hears and feels everything. You cry, and he feels bad there. You laugh, and he calms down in the utopia. Believe me, when a baby is born, all those problems that seem to you now unresolved will go to the background. You will enjoy motherhood, and the rest is not so important. The situation is certainly not easy for you. But you know, if there is nowhere to go or you need some help, you can always call me. I'll leave everything and help. You have my phone. After every visit to the doctor, Julie wanted to live again. It took another 2 months. There was not a single day and not a single night for her not to remember Odinka. No matter how angry she was at him, she still loved him very much. It was worth closing her eyes and then his hands, lips smile. She scolded herself for what the world is worth. Throw it away, forget it. What an idiot. He left you, left and does not remember. If I really loved him like I did, I would find him, give him a little bit of myself. And you were giving him a lot of trouble every month. What did you want in the first place? You found him on the way, you brought him to you by yourself, and now you are giving him a hard time. That's it. Admit it, you are a single mother. So what? How many of us are there? My mother has somehow grown up, and I will cope. Valentina understood that until she asks her daughter for forgiveness and tells the truth, they will not get along. She has already outlined all this herself. Julia was silent from that last conversation as a partisan. She did not react to anything. If Valentina tried to make a scene, her daughter left, either silently in her room or in the street. The woman's soul was rusted by the cats. Oh my God! How can I get to my daughter? How can I pray for forgiveness? But they're not strangers. Everything fell out of her hands. She did not want to do anything. She wanted to hug her stupidity, hug her, tell her that she was not angry anymore, that she would help, not leave. Everything was decided by chance. It was a day off. Yulia, in order not to think about Dima, decided to clean up the room. She washed the dishes and washed the windows. When the woman just washed the window, the mother, passing by, accidentally looked into her room. Valentina thought that her daughter was trying to jump out and commit suicide. But they lived on the 5th floor. Not remembering herself, the woman rushed to her in a second, abruptly pulled the daughter from the window, hugged, and chanted, "Yulichka, dear, don't do this. Don't jump. I beg you. Forgive me, old fool. It's all my fault that your Dinka left. I told him that you have a fiancé, and you were so funny with him for fun. I wanted it the best way. It seemed to me then that I was doing everything right. I just see that you were stupid, repeating my fate. Only now, looking at your unbearable suffering, I realized what I had done. I left my grandson without a father. I'm not angry at you. I love you. It's okay. We'll raise your baby together. Where can we go? Just don't do anything to yourself. And if you want, I'll help you find Dima. I'll ask him for forgiveness." Yulia looked at her mother with a smile. Tears flowed down her cheeks. "Mom, are you kidding me? I wasn't going to jump. I was just washing the windows. But I'm glad you confessed and told the truth. You know, at first I really hated you and agreed there was something. But then I realized that if Dimka really loved me as much as I loved him, he would find a way to see, talk, and figure it out. And since he completely agreed and silently left forever, so there is a way for him. So don't blame yourself. Thank you for your support. Now I will rest at home with my soul." Mother and daughter hugged for the first time in a long time and cried. But these were tears of relief and liberation. It even seemed to breathe easier. Valentina was confused when to put the kettle. Julia crunched with a salty cucumber, drinking it with sweet tea. The old woman remembered that when she was pregnant with her daughter, she was always munching on the food she found. Both laughed. Now Valentina was preparing for her birth in Cologne. She took out an old, stained sewing machine from her youth, dug into the chest, and found a piece of soft fitting. She washed them, ironed them, and carefully put them in a pile. Yulia came back from her shift and was amazed. She took a little piece of cloth in her hands, turned it around, and tears of love fell down her eyes. "Mom, thank you. That's great. What is it? Will the baby have such tiny hands, just like a doll? I can't believe it." Mom sighed and replied, "Yes, my daughter, we will be on duty in turn at night. At first it will be hard, and then we will get involved. You can buy a wheelchair and a bed on the website. You will be paid by the decree, but it will be enough for the first time. And there, maybe I will be with my granddaughter, and you will find some kind of job, or you will go to work earlier. Nothing, we will survive." Yulia became morally much easier. Now she knew that her mother was with her. She supports her. It was possible to tell that she was disturbed and disturbed. And anyway, as soon as the evening came, Yulia became sad, thoughtful. Tears came and pressed. She remembered how they were sitting on the couch with Dimka, watching a TV series about the police, and then they slept together, hugging each other. He gently stroked her shoulders, hair, whispered words of love. "Oh, Dimka, how is it? Where are you now? Maybe you're strange in the world and forgot me long ago. How could you? I believed you. So you won't know that soon you'll have a son." These thoughts were spinning in my head all the time, turning my soul without a trace. But soon such an event happened, which shook the whole city and turned Yulia's life upside down. That day in the morning, she had some kind of premonition. Something was wrong with her heart. Her heart was beating. She was always confused about what to do with her. She almost confused the patient's tests and almost took the patient to the X-ray. The nurse yelled at Yulia all day. "What's wrong with you? Get a grip. What will happen to your decree if you're already in the clouds? Think about your job." When Julia came home from shift, a cart of several chic black limos arrived. Valentina was just watering flowers on the windowsill and was very surprised. "Look, daughter, what important cones have come to someone. I've only seen such cars in the movies. I wonder who it is. It seems that the rich do not live in our house." Suddenly, they called the door. Surprised, Valentina went to open it. There were 3 bodyguards on the doorstep, and one respectable, stylish, and expensively dressed young man. He smiled and asked, "Good afternoon, Valentina Pavlovna. Is Yulia home? Can I come in?" The busy woman nodded and silently let the important guests in, wondering who had come to them. Visitors passed into the hall. Yulia came to them. Suddenly, this young and stylish dandy ran up to her and hugged her. He was so happy. "Well, hello, darling. Here I am. You're Dima. Are you happy? I'm back." To the surprise of the guy, Julia, with anger, pushed him away and shouted, "What are you, Dima? Why did you suddenly decide to come back? You easily refused me, believing that my mother told you about it, and did not even bother to talk to me personally, to know if it's true or not. Where have you been all this time? In space, on the moon? Why didn't you let yourself know? What kind of masquerade with limos? Or was it a masquerade and a model of a wanderer? Who are you anyway?" The guy got sad, sat on the couch, showed the guys to leave the room, and began to tell. "Don't get mad, dear. Don't shout, please. Just listen to everything. Please. Yes, you're right. I'm not a wanderer. I'm the son of millionaire Krasinov. You've probably heard of him. We have 2 airlines abroad. So I grew up in luxury and wealth. I studied in a private elite school. Then in England, I graduated from the Economic University. It seemed to me that my whole life was ahead. It was wonderful and amazing. It felt like I had pink glasses in my eyes. And suddenly, all of a sudden, I lost my mom. And that was because she was carefully monitoring her health. She was examined in the best clinics and had an absolutely healthy lifestyle. Can you imagine? She got out of the car and went to the supermarket, and it was terrible grief for our whole family. I remember the funeral in a very confused way. It seemed that it was not happening to me. At first, Dad was very sad. We somehow united. Together it is easier to experience such a heavy loss. But my father just amazed me when, 6 months after my mother's death, he brought this unbearable mother to our house, Nadezhda. I did not get along with her at once. She behaved impudently. She was the hostess in our house, began to throw away my mother's things, removed her photo, although I categorically forbade her from doing so. As a result, a wild scandal arose. I thought my father would support me, but no. He stood aside from this scoundrel and put conditions on me. Either be patient or leave. It's unheard of to drive your own son out of the house for some unbearable woman. I couldn't reach my father. He seemed to hear me. There was such a feeling that his hope bewitched him. So I got up and ran away from home. But I turned out to be completely unadapted to life on the street. What did I see before that? Luxurious life, higher society, everything in excess. I could not even imagine that people could starve, look for food in the garbage dump, sleep on the heat tracks. In my imagination, These were the alcoholics and social abandonments. I was so scared. I was wandering around. I'm a fool. I didn't even take my documents from home. Then I realized, talking to many of the homeless, that a good half of them are ordinary people, often even educated, just with a bitter fate. Getting to know you, Yulia, was the brightest episode in my wandering life. When Valentina Pavlovna kicked me out, I rushed to the station with an ambush, jumped into the passing train, and ended up in Samara. There I was already used to asking for mercy near the station. My father's cortege took me right from there. It turns out that my father is very sick. He got cold and fell ill with pneumonia. Doctors barely managed to save him. So, his bitch, right behind his back, started to share millions, rubbing her hands. She never visited the hospital. Then, father remembered that he had a son. He was ashamed. He decided to find me and take revenge. We lived with him with a soul in his heart until the appearance of this hope. We understood each other with half a word. In general, we made up with Dad. I'm now working as a manager at his company. I told my dad about you, Julia. He didn't mind that we met. So I came to pick you up. Get ready, let's go to the capital. I'll introduce you to my father. Julia sat down and kept silent. Then she suddenly asked, I'm not going anywhere, Dima. First, my mom is sick, and I won't leave her for a long time. And second, I'm pregnant. How do you like this news? The guy changed his face. How pregnant? I don't understand. From whom? Yulia couldn't stand it, put a ring on his cheek, and screamed. Idiot! From the fiancé I allegedly had. You're hinting at this, aren't you? So you believe that I was a walker and got into a fight with someone, right? Well, go to hell. Get out of here with your millions. I hate you. Yulia ran away in tears to her room. So okay, goodbye. I'm also hysterical. The whole procession was deleted. Valentina endlessly grasped her heart, realizing that all this cheesemongering was because of her stupid words. It was she who sowed doubts in Dima's head. And now everything can be fixed because it is clear that they love each other, and the Zlyatsi swear as if they are enemies. 2 weeks have passed. Julia was in a state of shock, crying day and night, and swearing at herself for what the world is worth. Why did I do that to him? He came back, and I gave him a slap. Oh, I'm a fool. It's all because of my stupid pride. I should have been press kiss at how I love, how much I missed, and what about me? Now it's definitely over. There are no options here. Valentina thought for a long time how to fix her mistakes, and decided. She found out through her friends where the very Korzanov lives, and began to get ready to go. The daughter lied to the old man. Julia, I'm going to the hospital with Aunt Sveta in the neighboring city. She says that a professor is coming there, a medical doctor. I want to get a consultation with him. Maybe I'll manage to avoid the operation. I'll show all my tests and listen to what he says. Of course, Mom, you can go by yourself. Or he can go with you. For support. Valentina waved her hands. What are you, daughter? Where are you going with your toxicosis in such a distance? Will you turn out at every turn? No, you stay home, rest, take care of your grandchildren. Don't cry without an end. My soul is torn to look at you. The capital shook an old woman. She with great difficulty found a foreign mansion in Korzanov. It was evening outside. There were thick forests around. Valentine was scared. What if they chase him? How can he get home? There was no money left for the return trip, and it took 3 kilometers to get to the bus stop. The woman knocked on the door. In the yard, huge dogs were barking. A guard came out of the guardhouse and unknowingly asked. Valentina, having gained more air, replied, I'm Mr. Korzanov, or his son Dmitri, have an important business to them, personal, so tell me. The guard on the radio contacted the owner. Alexander Nikolaevich, some old woman is asking for you. She says on personal and important business to let you in. At the end of the wire, she heard, let me introduce myself, who I am, I don't know any women. The old lady said, I'm Valentina, Yulia Nestorova's mother, Dimkina's fiancée. Tell them I'm not going anywhere. I'm frozen till morning, and I'm not going anywhere until they talk to me. The guard handed it all to the owner. He replied with a sigh. Well, okay. Take her to my office. I'll be right down. Valentina bravely walked through the room. He invited the guest to sit down with a gesture. Then he peed and asked, So, madam, What did you come with? Who are you talking to? I didn't quite understand the guard's words. The woman replied, I'm Valentina, Yulia's mother. You see, for months ago, my daughter brought a tramp home. She said that this is her fiancé. His name is Dima, and he will live with us. Well, of course, I took everything into account. Yulia is generally a housewife. She had only one boyfriend, Anton, a year ago. She's a smart girl. She works as a nurse in our local hospital. I was distracted. Of course, I was totally against these relationships. There was a terrible love between Yulia and Dima, with all the consequences. Everything was fine with them, but I took everything and ruined everything with my hands. But it didn't give me peace that my daughter, smarty and pretty girl, was dating a homeless man. I lived a hard life myself. I didn't want the same for my daughter. I was so angry with the police. Now Dima is in doubt. What should I do? I can't think. We don't need anything from you. You don't think. We bring up the child ourselves. But I would like to just ask your son for forgiveness and explain to him that my words are a lie. No, and there was no one in Yulia. I'm sorry that two loving hearts are fighting over me. That's all. And I'm sorry for my grandson. It turns out that my father will not recognize his family. Please pass this to Dima, and if possible, take me to the station. I need to go home. And then Yulia doesn't know that I went to you. She will be worried, and she can't. The man took off his glasses, twisted them in his hands, then replied, That's the news. So I'll be a grandfather soon? Well, Dinka, our arrow has hit everywhere. In general, now the picture is clear, more or less, and I think he's walking in the dark clouds. Don't worry, I'll talk to my son. Now the driver will take you straight home. In a good car, it's an hour of everything. Valentina sighed with relief. Thank you for not being kicked out. You listened and understood. It was clear that he was calm and reasonable. Not like all of us. First, we'd get things done, and then we'd think. With a light heart, Valentina went home. Now her conscience was clear. She tried to do everything to make Dima and Yulia understand and atone for her sins. When Dima came back from work, he was so tired that the only thought he had was to fall asleep. But it wasn't here. In the hallway, his father was already waiting for him. Dima remembered well from childhood his look, his eyebrows and glasses on his forehead moved to the nose. So it will be a serious conversation. So it happened. Alexander told his son, Let's go to the office, son. There is a conversation. Dima sighed and hurriedly swore to follow, thinking about what would be his fate this time. As soon as the door of the office closed, the father began strictly. What's going on, Dmitri? It turns out my son is a jerk, and I know nothing about it. Dima opened his mouth and turned around like this. What's wrong, Dad? What have I done? The company is fine. The contracts are normal. I checked everything for half a day today. What fly bit you? The man got even more inflamed. And so, son, Valentina is her name. A woman came today, cried, asked for forgiveness from you. She said that her daughter is pregnant with you. How can you understand that? If it's true, why are you hiding in the bushes? Is it a man's thing? Dinka panicked and got angry. I don't know what to do, Dad. You see, Yulia, she's good, I love her very much. She helped me then, sheltered me, and also froze there in the passage. But her mother is a snake under the well. And then she kicked me out. She said that Yulia was with me for fun, and she already has a fiancé. Well, I was offended. And when I decided to come to Yulia last week, she, instead of being happy and hugging, took it to the face and ate it. Well, it's okay. And for what? For the simple question of who she is pregnant from. But I have to be sure that this is my child. You never know. Father shook his head. Oh, Dima, your stupid head. I would also gladly add to your face right now. First, how could you blindly believe the woman without a bra and not check again? You had to wait until July and talk to her in person. Secondly, well, think for yourself. What would % of the girls do, knowing that you were a millionaire's son? They would be in a plush and lying down, only if you were next to them. Isn't that right? And what about yours? She slapped her cheek and kicked her out, right? What does it mean? That she doesn't care about your money and status. It's more important for her. If she wasn't afraid of bringing a homeless woman home to her mother's house and falling in love, then it's real, you know? And you didn't doubt her. Dima panicked. And the truth is how I didn't think about it. I was so angry I ate from the inside. I love her so much, and I'm jealous, although I don't even know who I am. I feel so bad without her. You know, she's my dear little man. I met Yulia, and I don't want to look at anyone else. And what should I do now, Dad? She's too proud. She probably won't. Forgive me. Alexander Nikolaevich laughed. You're a fool. Her mother said that your bride is walking around in a white dress day and night, doesn't want to see anyone, washes her tears, and you won't forgive her. Just talk to her. Sincerely hug, call for marriage. Not a single woman will refuse this. And what did you think? To deprive your grandfather and grandson. The winged Dmitri bought a big cake of cherries, which she dreamed of trying, and he took her home again. He called the door. Yulia's mother came out. She looked very bad and slightly shuddered. The guy greeted her. Good afternoon, Valentina Pavlovna. Yulia is at home. I need to talk to her. The woman suddenly cried. Hello, Dima. They took Yulia to the hospital. Half an hour, as if they took her to the ambulance. The stomach was very sick and the blood flow opened. Oh, what a grief. God forbid you throw it away. It's all from her nerves. She was very upset. I also wanted to go with her, the doctor said. My blood pressure jumped by, so I'm lying down. Tomorrow morning, I'll run to her. I'll never forgive myself. Dimka got pale and changed his face. Idiot, idiot, it's all because of me. What hospital? Tell me the address, quickly. The guy flew at full speed without understanding the road. When he broke into the reception room, the nurses were stunned. Not every day the son of Krasinov himself looks at them. They often saw Dima on advertising banners and the cover of the magazines, and he was immediately recognized. The guy was almost screaming. In which room is Nestorova Julia lying? What's wrong with her? Where's the doctor? This is my fiancée. The staff ran in, got tired. Everyone began to calm Dima down. An old, tired doctor came to him from the ordination room and strictly said, What have you done here? This is a maternity home, not a bazaar, by the way. Nestorova in the 5th room. The situation, to be honest, is critical. The threat of a heart attack, strong bleeding. We do everything we can. You are the father of the child. Can you give blood? It would help her very much now, as the blood loss is significant. Dimka nodded his head. Yes, anything, only if everything is fine with Yulia and the child. I will pay for any most expensive drugs. I beg you, let her go for a second. It is important for me to tell her something. When she hears this, everything will be fine, I assure you. The doctor wanted to say that it was not allowed, but he looked into the eyes of the guy, full of pain and despair, and changed his mind. Okay, just a couple of minutes, and I'm waiting for you in the manipulative one. Dima quietly entered the ward. Julia lay scared and pale, like a sheet, and seemed almost out of breath. The doctors were fussing around her. They put injections and a dropper with drugs. The boy came up to her, got up on his knees, and whispered, Hello, my little blue. I'm sorry, fool. I love you very much, more than life. Don't say anything. Save your strength and our baby. Let me put my hand on my stomach, can I? He gently put his hand on the bottom of his stomach, gently stroked him and preached, Little my son, it's me, your daddy, you're not a bull. We need you right on time, strong and healthy. The nurse appeared at the door and showed us that it was time to go. Dimka gently kissed Yulia and left, and something unimaginable was happening in her soul. An hour ago, she just wanted to die, and by and large, she didn't care what would happen next. And now, inside, everything was filled with warmth, happiness, and incredible light. She really wanted to live. To grow up, my son. She finally closed her eyes and fell asleep, knowing for sure that everything would be fine now. She was not alone. Dimka was with her. Dimka shed blood. The poor guy sat on the couch of the foyer almost all night, not closing his eyes, and prayed as he could. God, take everything from me. Money, company, cars. Only let Yulia and the baby get better. Let me get sick better than something happens to them. I love them so much. In the morning, the doctor who touched his shoulder, he had already changed clothes and went home. Looking at the poor guy, he felt so sorry for him, and he decided to cheer him up. Dmitri, Everything is fine with your bride. The bleeding was stopped. The threat of the throw-out was copied, but she will have to stay with us for another week. Observe. For the future, be careful. Do not let the stress of nervous overloads. Take care of her. Women are vulnerable, especially in this situation. If you want, you can pay a separate room with a TV. Happy Dima is now holding the doctor's hand and thanking him. Thank you. Thank God, everything went well. If something happened to Yulia or the baby, I would never forgive myself. Can I see her now? The doctor replied strictly. The reception clock is hanging. Don't break the rules. These rules are written for everyone. Clear? Dima organized everything, and Julia was transferred to a separate comfortable room with a TV. She was still not allowed to get up, so the guy tried to spend every free minute with her. He did a massage, stroked his belly, filled it with fruits, juices, and vitamins. Mom also wore regular homemade borscht and steam. Julia couldn't help but be happy. Mom, Dima, you're going to feed me like this. I'll become as chubby as a wiener. Moreover, the toxicosis has already passed, and the wolf's appetite has woken up. I eat like I'm not myself. After the discharge from the hospital, Dima, despite Julia's protests, brought her to his mansion, and he, together with his father, took care of Valentina Pavlovna's health. They determined her treatment in the sanatorium, paid the monthly stay there. The woman was happy because she, in fact, never rested anywhere for her whole life. As soon as she was on vacation, she immediately looked for a job, and so year after year. And the money never came in so much to go to the resort. The sanatorium was located on the seashore of the south. The landscapes were just magnificent. The staff was dressed like a queen. Well, one important guest, the wedding of Korzanov himself. The woman walked a lot, took pictures in the background of mountains and beaches, and sent pictures to her friends. They were burning with envy. The whole entrance was full of it. Well, look how lucky Valka was at her old age. She is resting in the royal palace, being treated for free. Here you are, Yelka, or all of you. She was full of stupidity. She was dating a homeless man. And it turned out to be something not easy, just like in the fairy tale. Yulia went to her maternity leave at work, and on the last day, decided to arrange a farewell dinner in the dining room. She brought cake, juice, fruits, and champagne for her colleagues. Now no one laughed at her. He didn't wash his bones, but everyone was smiling and trying to please him. Otherwise, they will complain to their father-in-law, then wait for a check of all kinds. Outside the city, Julia felt great. Fresh forest air, walks along the shady paths. She rounded, curled up, cheeks became pink, belly grew not up and down, and resembled a big watermelon. Dmitri was wearing his beloved one, like a crystal vase. He was so happy. He had agreed in advance with the best clinic about the coming births. All the time I asked her about her well-being and worried that, God forbid, the threat of a breakdown would not repeat. Alexander Nikolaevich also did not waste time. Equipped a chic children's room. But from the young, he kept everything a secret and did not show anything, worried that the sign was bad. Valentina Pavlovna was perfectly treated and recovered. When she went to her polyclinic for an examination after that, the doctors were shocked. All the symptoms improved so much. The doctor was surprised. Valentina Pavlovna, now you are married, come on. As you say, the sanatorium was called. I will recommend it to all my patients. When Julia went to the last one before the birth of Uzi, together with her lover, another shock awaited them. Efim Petrovich, smiling slyly, began the conversation. Yurinka, I see that everything has improved in your personal life. Is this your husband? You look good. Tfutfa. The woman shone. Yes, this is Dima, the father of my baby. We are fine. Then I have some amazing news for you. Young man, sit down just in case. Scared, Dima said, something with a baby? Speak, do not pull. You have a twin, a boy and a girl. Congratulations. Yulia opened her mouth. What a twin. I have 3 times for all pregnancy made a UZI, and you did not say anything about twins. How so? Efim Petrovich continued. I saw everything, just decided not to scare you until the time. Agree, if I had told you about it, you would have agreed not to stop the pregnancy. You were already scared and cried all the time. Dima jumped with joy. Wow, wow, wow. 2 children at once, that's great. We'll shoot right away and that's it, yes, y'all, but it won't be boring. Shocked Yulia replied. And I think, why is my carapace so swollen and the belly is already like 2 watermelons? And it turns out there are 2 of them there? I'll give birth to them myself, or I'll have to do the surgery. The gynecologist laughed. Well, it started. Ordinary female fears. Of course, give birth on your own. You have all the indicators and normal, the pelvis is wide. We can do it, don't worry. You will have to be treated at the maternity hospital only a week earlier. Because in the case of a twins, the children often are premature and hasty. Everyone was shocked at home. Valentina secretly crossed herself and thought about herself. Oh my God, it's so good that Julia and Dima made up. I can't imagine how we would have pulled 2 children together. Happy Julia pressed on Dima and said in a dream, You see, when I first saw you on the way, for some reason, I immediately thought, this is my destiny, thank God, and I was not mistaken. Dimka smacked Yulia and replied, I have also thought about it so many times. After all, if I had not quarreled with my father and did not get involved in the transition, we would probably never have been able to meet. I have no regret that we met. I regret that I was such a fool and made my bunnies so worried that they almost lost our babies. I'm sorry again. Now I know for sure what circumstances you should always sit and talk about. We still have a lot to learn because our family has just been born, but we have a whole life for this. Julia barely reached pregnancy. At the end, she no longer saw anything beyond her nose, behind her huge belly. When Julia was taken to the maternity hospital, Dima did not find a place for himself. Valentina Pavlovna also prayed next to him. Looking at the huge animal of the bride, Alexander Nikolaevich could not realize how women are born, and especially 2 at once. Fortunately, everything went well. Yulia insisted that only Efim Petrovich should take the child. She trusted him %. She knew that he would not do anything bad. When she was completely wet and exhausted, 2 squeaky pebbles were passed in her hands. She even cried out of happiness. The emotions were so strong. At that moment, Julia felt like the happiest woman on the planet. Efim Petrovich bowed to her and said, And remember what I promised you? That when you become a mother, happiness will fill you so much that all other problems and difficulties will become so small and insignificant. So, am I right? Julia smiled with a smile. All % right. Thank you, Efim Petrovich, for everything. You are more than a doctor. You have become like a father to me during this time. I bow to you. All the honest people gathered at the Christmas of Anachka and Slavic. Press, reporters invited Efim Petrovich and all acquaintances. Everyone was amazed by little angels, quietly giggling in the cradle, and wished happiness and goodness to the happy family.